word? What's the word?
Oh, these are the things that you don't want to get caught doing. And it's one of them, at least it wasn't getting caught with your pants down. Steve Swift, how you doing this week, brother? Let's get right into this, man. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, getting caught with your pants down is not a great thing, as I know from, the unspent convictions. Anyway, not really. I'm all right. I caught up on my sleep during the Canelo fight, and I caught up on my sleep yesterday as well with those other two fights. So I feel well rested.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're going to have to be because you're going to be watching a bunch of small guys with the fights that are coming up. At a weird time on a Sunday for North America, but I get it because they're fighting out of Vegas, and Vegas's local time would be 7 p.m. I'm talking about the Inoue fights. But before we get to that, let's go back in time a little bit, Steve. Maybe not far enough, because I'm going to apologize first and foremost to everybody for us not doing a show last week. I was up in very, very northern remote Timmins, Ontario, with a wrestling show, doing some stuff up there, pro wrestling wise. And, I was on the road. So we didn't do the show, and I apologize for that because it seems like that fight last week between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn was stupendous. Was absolutely better than it was expected to be, better than all of us said that it would be. And I mean, by all of us, I mean Steve Swift. He was shitting all over it. He said it was going to be garbage. I'm just saying, right?
It was a great fight, and also I'm very upset that we didn't do the program last week because you would need to say well done Liverpool FC for winning the Premiership.
Damn it.
Wearing my red garb.
Listen, this was the whole reason that I didn't do the show. I didn't want it to get out there to be known so quickly, but I actually wasn't in Timmins. I was just hiding in my room. I didn't want to do a show because I wasn't going to put him over that way. But since we're there, congratulations to Liverpool for a huge, successful win. So,
on a slot. No. On a slot. Anyway, the fight
that was me on prom night on a slut. Anyways, so that fight being said, let's talk about Friday's fights. Friday's fights that were meant to be a brand new spectacular spectacle. The Saudis come in with a ton of money. Now I know you have this look on your face because you're like, wait a second, we've done this before, right? We did do this before. Jerry Cooney, Ken Norton Jr., huge sparring sessions right in the middle of Times Square. Like, we've seen this being done. So this wasn't something that was new, but the way that they did it was certainly something that was new.
Yes. Can I just ask, because I may be missing something here. How is the money made? Because it's a small amount of people in the arena, in the room, not even in the arena, in the room. It was by invitation only, wasn't it? I didn't get my invitation. What Turkey said to me was that he sent it to an old email address, and that is why I didn't get it. Yeah, he didn't put the .com in there or something like that. Something happened, and this is the 14th time it's happened, but I understand that's fair enough. However, you've got a small amount of people in the room, and then you've got people watching it outside on screens. Am I right? Who's paying for that then, Tidster? Am I wrong, or is anybody paying?
Well, one person paid. That was His Excellency. That's the one who paid because they shut down half of the street. The other half was still open, blocked it all off. Construction workers are watching from the buildings. There's 300 people sitting ringside and I want to talk about this later on because this is very important to the conversation that I want to have with you this week. But there's 300 people sitting ringside. and the whole thing is being broadcast. Shout out to Jim Lampley for being the throwback commentating for this thing. Fantastic. I think this whole thing was set up to be like this throwback. You had, the checkered cab and the culture of New York was what I think they were really trying to sell, to be a more of a, hey, you give us 20% off of our deal and we're going to put New York City over. Right.
Yeah, and also really important for His Excellency to do this, because at the moment what he's looking like is the disruptor. He's looking like someone who comes in, a great wrestling character, the disruptor. He's coming in and changing things.
Mhm.
And some people, like me, curmudgeonly people with big white beards like me, are saying, how dare he, clutching my pearls? How dare he do that? How dare he, Marcus of Queensberry rules and all of that? And I think part of this is about, look, I love the boxing as it used to be as well, folks. I came up in this way. So really important to do that. But it's an experiment, isn't it? And one that I don't think will ever be repeated.
Now, here's my question then. Do you think it won't be repeated because of the event itself? Or do you think it won't be repeated because of the content? So let's get into what the content was. And prior to going into this, if you looked at this on paper, it was fantastic. Teofimo Lopez against Barboza Jr., right? Fantastic. I mean, because if we look at what we saw with Arnold Barboza Jr. and Jose Carlos Ramirez back in November on that Saudi card, this is what got them this New York spot, because this whole thing was set up, right, so that they could promote. They were there to promote a rematch between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. That's what this entire thing was set up, in my opinion, for, right? Teofimo Lopez, who starts off the main card of this thing. Now, they had a couple of undercard fights, a fireman and a police officer. Cool. Fantastic. Teofimo Lopez came out and he said, I'm going to set the tone for this thing. Teofimo Lopez looked fantastic. Stymied Barboza to the point to where you were like, this isn't the same guy that we saw in November, right? This isn't that guy. Teofimo Lopez looked great. And then the whole thing went south, right? What did you think, Steve?
The thing is that there is a feeling that you can see the matchmaking happening for miles away. You're quite right. So a lot of us don't like it when the business of boxing is thrown in our faces. We like the business of boxing with, I'm going to eat the souls of your children, I'm going to overturn a table and throw a chicken sandwich at you, or something like that. We threw a chicken sandwich at him. Ooh, look at all that mayonnaise. All of that, we like that. But what we don't like is this guy can fight this guy and this can fight. And you're very good at this, Tidster. You know exactly all of the pieces to put together. But and you've said it on this show, but when it's thrown in our faces, okay, these two guys are on the set, it's almost as if you're saying, oh, I never realized we put these two guys on the same card. They're going to have fantastic matches. And I never realized they could fight each other again, couldn't they, folks?
Yeah.
Well, it didn't quite happen that way. In fact, the way it happened ruined that matchmaking, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I got to agree, because if we're talking about, we talked about Teofimo Lopez. We talked about how good that fight was. Next fight up was the Devin Haney fight, which I'm still waiting for something to happen there. Listen, Devin Haney got the win in this, but that's because he threw more punches than the other guy that he was fighting against. Jose Carlos Ramirez basically stood there like a punching bag and didn't do anything. And now I said to myself as I was watching this, right? Because I was like, I'm trying to give these guys the benefit of the doubt. Is this right? And shout out to Canadian former heavyweight or cruiserweight champion Denton Daly for sitting down with me and watching the fights on Friday. Shout out to Sean for putting on a huge, great, fantastic spread. It was fantastic. Again, .com.ca. I don't know. I didn't see your ticket. I'm sorry. Maybe we'll get you on the next one, Steve, for sure. But what I said was, has Devin Haney up to this point ever fought a Mexican? Think about that for a second. Let's give Devin Haney the benefit of the doubt for what he was in there with. Okay? Because Devin Haney did not look like Devin Haney that we've seen before. So you got to ask yourself a couple of questions. Is it that he has never fought a Mexican before? And we know that the Mexican fighting style is not really something that Devin Haney should be getting into a firefight with. Right?
It's not that he's never fought a Mexican before. It's that he doesn't want to fight anybody ever again.
Is that what you're saying?
That's my concern. He looked completely, and part of this is about the crowd. Let's talk about that in a minute, I think. But part of this is about the shenanigan with the courts and all of that. And when you do that non-boxing stuff, that takes away from the boxing stuff. And he looked as if he just didn't want to be in there. Listen to this. You said that he won by dint of landing more punches. Right. We're talking about 70 to sodding 40 here. Those numbers are risible, aren't they? And the thing is that I thought he looked completely and utterly gun shy. I thought he looked like he was worried about what might come back from Ramirez, but I don't think it was the kind of worry as in I've seen tape and he could put me into the middle of next week if I let him have 1 millisecond. I think it was, I'm frightened of anything that will come back. Now, I could be wrong here entirely. It would be a first, but I could be wrong. But I think he looked like he's not interested.
Interesting. Do you think then this could be a case of I don't want to let my daddy down? Because Bill wants him to fight. The old man wants him to fight. And we've talked about this before about fathers being the trainers for their sons. In the first fight, Teofimo Lopez, his dad was in his corner. Fantastic advice. Wonderful advice. You got to see that there is, it's not like the Garcias, not like Mikey and his dad or anything like that, right? But with the Haneys, it's almost cringy how much Bill wants to live vicariously through his son, it seems like at times, right? Am I wrong on this? Am I seeing something differently?
No, and you see that dynamic play out with Chris Eubank Jr., don't you? In a sort of the antithesis of that, which is I'm not really your dad in this respect, son. So I don't really want you to fight. I care about you and I love you. So there's that which hampers Chris Eubank Jr. as well. And at some point, Chris Eubank Jr. had to say, "Do you know what, Dad? Just sod off," and has done so. So yes, I think there's a bit of that. I think that with all the business of boxing taking place, they weren't up for the boxing of boxing because, as Marvin Hagler said, it gets harder to get up and do those 5 a.m. runs when you're sleeping in silk pajamas or sleeping in silk sheets or whatever it was. And it gets harder to do that boxing of boxing when you've been involved with the business of boxing. And actually, we could win a match just by going to court, folks. So I don't need to get up and pound those streets. I just thought he looked disinterested. No, I don't want to say he looked frightened, although I think there was a bit of that. But I think he just looked disinterested. And when you get disinterested, I worry that you're going to get punched into the middle of next week at some point, even with a journeyman.
And that could be a huge thing because the last thing that he wanted to have happen was for him to catch a shot and go down and really put a damper on whether or not there's going to be a rematch with him and the guy that was in the main event who did exactly that. Took a shot and went down.
You make a really good point, Tidster, because there is that thing of, well, I can see the booking happening. I can see it. So yes, I need to make sure I get through this. I need to make sure I get through this fight. You see it with wrestling all the time. We booked this big tag team championship for next week. this week you're going to be fighting these. Well, they're not going to lose then, are they? They just
Right.
need to get through without an injury. So yes, there was that. But what a boring fight. There was more excitement in the Garcia fight, but not a lot.
Not a hell of a lot. The most exciting thing of the entire night was, for me, it's always two things. Number one was the fact that Ryan Garcia got put on his butt by Rolly Romero, because Rolly Romero came to actually fight. Rolly Romero doesn't have as many fights as these other guys. Rolly Romero only has 2 losses on his record. Those 2 losses, I mean, let's think about it. Number one, Gervonta Davis. Newsflash, everybody's losing to Gervonta Davis right now. The game is rigged in his favor right now. The second one, Isaac Cruz, who I love me some Isaac Cruz, and the reason that he got beat in that one is because Isaac Cruz is a head down, throw that left. Rolly Romero was handpicked to come out there because of the way that he had zero defense for a left coming from Isaac Cruz. The Garcia camp obviously thought, this is how we can get it. This is going to be a guy who's going to be there. This is my left. This is what's going to happen, right? And they handpicked Rolly Romero. Rolly Romero said, you know what? Actually, what he said was, it's a super. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to fight and I'm going to kick his ass. Because that's the number 2 thing that I always love is Rolly Romero on a microphone. He is one of the I do not want Rolly Romero leaving boxing ever. He's great. He's great, and he knows it. Right? Now, the fight itself, the best thing in the entire night, the most exciting thing was Ryan Garcia getting put on his butt.
Yeah.
What did he get put on his butt with, Steve?
Well, was it a left?
It was a left.
It was 2 lefts, actually.
It was a jab followed up with that left cross, the same exact thing that Ryan Garcia put Devin Haney down with, because Rolly Romero showed up and he kept that left hand up on the side of his cheek the entire time, saying to Ryan Garcia, you're going to have to get through it. I'm not that guy anymore. I've put on more weight. I'm going to muscle you. You don't understand how big and strong. Did you see the legs on Rolly?
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
But the irony, first of all, Garcia was fully open to that punch.
Mm-hmm.
So, at that point, he was disrupted by that jab, and then fully open to that punch. That is a worry. And he was put down, straight up again. But the irony of, you make a good point, looked big at the weight. Ramirez looked big at the weight. The irony of them saying on the commentary, trying to make excuses for Ryan Garcia, really saying, well, he's come up in weight. Yeah, and the other guy looks bigger. Yeah, well, that might have been the case with the Devin Haney fight, perhaps. It could have been. Oh, yeah, do you think? So all of that might have made, I bet Haney was saying to his dad, I told you. I think told you. And I thought, again, using the 2 words, gun and shy, I thought that after he got put on his arse, I thought that Garcia thought that could happen again.
100%.
I better do nothing. And it's okay to say, yes, you're right. Well, you're open to that punch. Romero was picked. He was on the phone the whole night. You're quite right. But, what do you say? What do you say? Yeah, stay like this. What do you say? So that, but also, you got to throw that punch to actually have a go. Yeah. And Garcia didn't bother to do that.
He didn't. His jab was on point. His jab was sticking, and he could have, if he had more of that, he would have been fine. But what Rolly did was basic fighting. He came in, jab to the body, jab upstairs, pull back a little bit, come in soft, go in hard. Like, he did basic footwork. He did basic everything to beat Ryan Garcia. Now, I want to get to this very quickly, because we talk about this before we move on to Saturday night's stuff. We talk about matchups of what's going forward after this. And then I'm going to get into the whole dynamic of crowds. But what I want to say first is, what do you do with this afterwards? Teofimo Lopez obviously looked fantastic. I personally would like to see, there was a link between him and Richardson Hitchens. But that's obviously, not a thing that's going to happen anytime soon. I maybe because of the size, maybe you give him, I don't know, Isaac Cruz. Let's throw him in there. That's an exciting hell of a fight, right? Let's see something like that happen, because let's face it, the junior welterweight division across the board, there's no unification yet. There's nothing going on there, right? So I think you do that. Obviously, you can still do the Haney Garcia fight. There's still money to be made there, but that's not a main event anywhere anymore. That is not even a co-main event, because you're going to have a hard time selling this with what they did this past weekend, right? And I think that with Barboza, I don't know. Maybe you give Barboza somebody like a Jack Catterall or something like that. I would like to see something in there, but I think that I don't know. I think that there's not a lot of meat on the bone for that weight class right now. I think there's a log jam, right? And they got to kind of wait and play it out and see what happens.
Yeah, and just to go back to the two co-main events.
Sure.
I'm in a way, I'm really, I was bored shitless, but I'm really pleased it played out that way, because I think, and I'm disgusted by it, these are two fighters who I think believe their own hype and thought, I just got to turn up. And, because of my character and because of the way I am, and I'll just be able to get through this. And as you say, when you do the fundamentals right, you're going to get something sorted, aren't you? You do the fundamentals right, stick to your game plan, get that done, footwork's good, get the jab, get everything else done, I'll get on the phone, and you're going to be all right. And I'm just really pleased that those two came unstuck, because they believe their own publicity, and they think all you need to do is say something on social media, get something on YouTube, and you're going to be okay. So yes, very happy. And nobody, as you say, wants that now as a main event. But that's what happens with the boxing of boxing. It influences your brand, influences the business of boxing, doesn't it?
Maybe the saving grace is the guy that fought last week. Maybe the saving grace is the guy that they showed. Maybe the saving grace is Conor Benn. Conor Benn works at that weight class normally. You throw Conor Benn, you have his fight that you can promote, what he did going up in weight class, making a hero out of himself, to now come back, fight a Devin Haney, because he's already said he thinks Devin Haney's whole thing is bullshit. He thinks you don't do that kind of stuff. So you've got that story in there already. Ryan Garcia's got to go figure out his own shit right now. Devin Haney still got to fight. And I think Conor Benn, sitting on the sidelines as close as he fought, he could be Batman in this whole situation.
Yes, you've got to make Devin Haney interested. At the moment, he's too kind of easy, and it's too loose for him, and it's too, I'm great, and I can just get through. Now, Conor Benn's going to come in, and he's a pit bull, and he really, and look at the first round against Eubank Jr. I mean, really, he was just, I just thought, you'll punch yourself out in the middle of this round. Just be careful. And, he's just so wound up and just so hungry that he will actually, he could excite Devin Haney again. Because at the moment, I don't think Devin Haney is excited by boxing at all.
No, not at all. And it showed, because, the amount of punches that were thrown in that entire event was less than what was thrown. We're talking 3 fights, Steve, was less than what was thrown in the Conor Benn Chris Eubank fight. Legit. The amount of punches they threw in that fight was more than all 3 of those together. Now, let's move to the next night very quickly, okay? Because I think that a couple of things happened wrong in this. I don't think, first of all, we started off the night with Bakole and Ajigba, that was not a draw. That
No.
was not a draw. I think that the scorecards, the business of boxing, the bullshit of boxing, maybe they handed out these scores a little bit prematurely and they had the wrong names on them, because I don't think that fight was a draw whatsoever. But there was a fight on this card that was. There was a fight on this card, in my opinion, that was. And that fight, unfortunately, goes to a man who's had 3 draws on his record already, Badou Jack. That fight for the WBC Cruiserweight Championship between Badou Jack and Nora McKaylen. First of all, quick shout out to our boy Ryan Rozicki. Please get better soon, my man, because that really should have been your spot in there. We all know it. And you are the number 1 guy for that position. So let's make it happen. Fuck the unifications, get better, get out there. Let's do this. Now, Badou Jack did exactly what he should have done in this thing, but neither one of those guys, in my opinion, I had that fight 114 apiece at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and Badou Jack's a great wily contender. And go on.
But
you want to say something?
The last thing the WBC needed with that card, or with that fight, was it ending in a draw. After all of the bullshit for the last, couple of years we've been looking at for the WBC Cruiserweight Championship, the bullshit back and forth, only to end up with Badou Jack, who was the original champion in recess, against McKaylen, who is the most recent champion in recess, fighting each other in the first place. The WBC was like, I don't care. I don't care. One of you is coming out of here a winner. And it wasn't. It was a draw.
And
now,
go on.
Saving that was Jaime Munguia. Because the Jaime Munguia Bruno Suarez fight was what it should have been the first time around, in my opinion. Bruno Suarez is no joke. There's no doubt about that. He reminds me of such an old school boxer. I don't mean the way that he throws, the way that he boxes, just the way that he looks and the way that he carries himself. Right? But this is a dude with like 17 PhDs and a couple of masters, and like he's a brilliant mind. What the fuck's he doing, Steve?
But fighting grabs you. Boxing grabs you. And the fight was needed because of the rest of the nonsense, or the rest of the nonsense, and the main event nonsense, actually, in my view. The main event nonsense. So the fight was definitely needed. But then, you know, for those people who actually stayed, well, like me, who stayed up and watched and all of that, and purchased and all of that, it was a real, and this can happen in boxing, can't it? But for 2 events to have such issues is a real shame for boxing, particularly for people like us who are constantly having to defend boxing.
Well, let's talk about that main event. Let's talk about the thing that was selling this entire weekend, right? This is the Fatal Fury weekend. And at the peak of it, in the middle of it, Canelo Alvarez against William School. I haven't seen this much running since the 1986 Olympics. With a Carl Lewis and a Ben Johnson and all of these, like, this was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. And if you thought for 1 second that we just talked about it, the fight between Devin Haney, okay, and Jose Carlos Ramirez, and the amount of punches thrown, if you thought that was bad enough, Ladies and gentlemen, Canelo said, not only am I the face of boxing, not only am I the guy that everybody wants to fight, not only am I the new Floyd Mayweather, I can beat everybody, I can take everybody's belt, and I can also do one thing better. I can shit the bed better than anybody. Because that's what this fight did.
Yeah, it should have been called the Flying Feet because, you know, he's a dancing fool. He's a dancing fool. I feel good. Da, 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 da. That's what William Skull was doing. I'll tell you what, he must have slept well that night because he didn't stop moving. I haven't stopped dancing yet. It was extraordinary. A fight where the ref, Tidster, the ref, had to tell them to stop messing about and start fighting in that 9th round. The ref had to get involved. Come on, lads, for goodness sake, actually throw some sodding punches.
Alvarez, 152 punches thrown, 56 punches landed. School, 293 punches thrown, 55 punches landed. Let's take that into consideration what we saw the week before. Conor Benn, 593 punches thrown with 215 punches landed. Chris Eubank Jr., a depleted, couldn't even get a sweat in the first 5 rounds of a fight. Way too big for that weight class. Came down, looked like death warmed over. 912 punches thrown with 367 punches landed. Chris Eubank Jr. damn near landed as many punches on Conor Benn as were thrown in this fight between both competitors at the main event level, who's supposed to be the face of boxing, who's supposed to be the man to carry this through. And all of this was to set up another fucking fight. This whole weekend, Steve, this whole weekend has been nothing but to set up. It's a promo to set up future stuff. This has more pro wrestling written all over it than people can even imagine. Because at the end of this, what did we get? It didn't matter. It didn't matter. All they needed to do was, there's this fucking belt, and we needed to get Terrence Crawford in the ring. That's all that this was.
Yeah, and once again, similar to Devin Haney and Garcia, Ryan Garcia, the face of that weight class and of boxing in general, really, at the moment. Canelo Alvarez looked like a lumbering, one-dimensional boxer. So you've got someone dancing in front of you. Well, you stop them dancing. How do you do that? You work it out, because you're supposed to have great talent. What you don't do is you don't just keep walking forward, because, I mean, he knew he was throwing enough punches to win that. Of course he was. Skull wasn't bothered to throw any particularly throw any punches.
Sure.
But you work it out. You don't. It's as if there's no disregard. There's a disregard for fans. So it's, as he said afterwards, words akin to, well, it doesn't matter. We got the belt. It does matter because we watched it, mate.
Here's why I think the heat of the whole weekend is on Canelo Alvarez. Because it brings me to my next point. Let's talk about the crowd. Let's talk about the venue. Let's talk about the atmosphere and how that plays into the fight that you give to the people that are watching it on TV, like you and myself. Because I said this at the moment when I was watching it on Friday night, how everything seemed to be flat. Well, think about this. And I know from firsthand experience from doing 25 plus years of professional wrestling, how hard it is and how you're just not into it to get up in front of a very minimal crowd. Now, with this crowd that they had there, could you imagine You are a guy who, your last fight, you're in an arena, 20,000 plus, right? Can't hear a thing, can't hear nothing. Ryan Garcia even talked about this, but I thought about it and I said it at the time. Now, all of a sudden, you're sitting in a sparring session atmosphere with fucking Elmo, Hulk Hogan, fucking I Show Speed, right? And a bunch of like people from the business, the guys that were just in the last fight are out there now watching your fight. And nobody's making a sound. How hard is it for those fighters to try to get up in that situation?
Oh, huge. And it shouldn't be disregarded. We've talked about this, about how poor that boxing was, but yes, shouldn't be disregarded. However, other fighters on the card did all right, but
They did.
Shouldn't be disregarded regarding that co-main event. Yeah, it's a corporate gig, isn't it? It's a corporate gig. And what it also is, Tidster, is it looks like a judging gig. It's like a band saying, well, the record company are there to see us, so you got to go and play in front of them. I'd rather them come to a live gig, but we got to go to the studio and play in front of them. It's that. It is. It feeds into your quite right view of, well, this is how the pieces fall into place. This is your audition for that fight. This is your audition for you fighting each other. And yeah, there was a guy halfway through the fight stifling a yawn right in the hard cam, and you can see this. I mean, at least he had the good grace to stifle it. But whether or not it's a boring fight, this is not a fighting crowd, is it? So, if you're specially inviting VIPs, they're there because you specially invited them, not because they want the fight. And this will not happen again, surely. And it's a massive misstep by His Excellency.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could see in between, if you were watching the crowd instead of the fight, because it was more exciting, it seemed like, you could see where His Excellency looked like he had Tourette's, because in between every round, he's just sitting there shaking his head. And he's got to know this was not a success to the level that it was supposed to be. A success for him nonetheless, because the foot is now in, the good graces have been done. The ties are there now with New York, one of the highest, I might add, one of the highest taxed states for doing combat sports. So for you to want to go there, it's got to be special, right? And we've all said before that His Excellency is huge on nostalgia. He's huge on the history of boxing. He's huge on all of that stuff. So you can see why he wants New York. There's no doubt about it. A lot of those other fighters the night after, as he hopped on a plane, boom, back over to Riyadh for those fights. And a lot of those fighters got up for their fights. You could really see the difference because they're in an arena. And Badu Jack and McCallan, they're out there. They're giving her. Even Bacoli is standing in the middle of the ring saying, "Get your ass in the middle of the ring and let's fight." They're up for this. They're doing it. And then Canelo comes out there, and that fight literally shits the bed. And you can't say to me, Steve, that it's just as much one guy's fault as it is the other guy's fault. William School didn't want to, engage in a fight, and it's really hard to have a fight when there's nobody who wants to fight you. However, we're talking about the man who wants to be the face of boxing. We're talking about Canelo Alvarez, who a couple of years ago would have put that away. He would have put that fight away with no questions asked, instead of just skating through. Why? Because he wants that fucking payday with Terrence Crawford, who he's going to bully, because Terrence Crawford doesn't belong in that weight class. He's too small to be fighting a Canelo Alvarez. This is the exact thing that we saw before when Floyd Mayweather fought a young Canelo Alvarez when he wasn't ready and didn't deserve that spot. This is what Canelo Alvarez is now doing to Terrence Crawford, I believe.
And this is why Canelo Alvarez is not a boxer anymore. He's a businessman.
Yeah.
He's I'll say he's just a businessman. He skated through it, eased through it, and that's fine for him. And as he said, and I'm paraphrasing again, that's okay. We got the belt. It isn't okay. And if you're a businessman, I'm not interested, and I'm not a great fan of Canelo, as you know. I think he bullies you in the ring, and if you get, and as Bivol showed, if you don't want to be bullied and you take it to him, then that's a problem. Bearing in mind all the weight issues and all of that, but I think he's a businessman, and I think that as you say, he's easing towards a Bud Crawford fight, and it's not about boxing; it's about business, and I'm not interested. I am interested in the business of boxing, but only when it's linked to the boxing of boxing. And unfortunately for me, you're quite right. This is a businessman who isn't a boxer anymore, and you've got a promoter to do that and a manager to do that, so you don't need to do it.
But if you're the businessman, then the goal is to make the most money possible, right? So why is he ducking David Benavidez?
Because that would end his brand. That's going to end his brand. Because one of the things about Canelo is you're a monster. You're a monster. Well, Benavidez, there are always bigger monsters out there. And Benavidez is a behemoth.
Yeah.
And so it would make Canelo looks small, and nobody wants to look small if your whole MO is based on I bully you into submission and I slap you around and I do all of that, because that's what he does, and he has skill. Of course he does. I'm not a great fan, as you know, and that's his whole MO. So he's not going to walk into the ring with someone who's bigger than him and who might best him in that way. Plus, it would make the mano a mano thing look terrible, and Canelo is not the kind of man right now, if ever, who would go out on his shield.
It makes me wonder if things might have been different had Canelo had a better outcome against Dimitri Bivol, because I believe that fight was probably set up as a way, can I fight a bigger guy, right? And no, you can't. So go back to what you do and being that bully who says, I only fight on this day at this time in front of this many people. And if you want the money fight, you're going to have to come up and get it, because this is what Terence Crawford is doing. Now, what happens after that fight? Does Terence Crawford stay up there at that weight class and try looking for other fights? Or does he go back down where he belongs?
I mean, the thing is, strangely, just to answer your first point, though, I think that Bivol beat him all ends up because not only did he bully him slightly, but he also, or meet him in the middle of the ring and say, come on, let's go. But he also beat him as far as boxing goes. So he took everything away from Alvarez. I mean, you can talk about weight, of course you can, but he took everything away from Alvarez. Alvarez was thinking, I can do this. Let's see if I can. I'm sure I can. And the man bested you on all of your terms. So as far as Bud Crawford goes, strangely, even in a fight that he loses, strangely, it opens things up for him, because if he's got the openness and he knows himself well enough, which I suspect from what we've seen Canelo doesn't, and he isn't able to say, okay, I lost, but let's see what else we can do now, because okay, I had to go. If Bud Crawford can say that, even if he loses, if he wins, of course, it's all at his feet. But if he loses, he can say, well, actually, I tried. I had a go. I could have a go again. And it does open things up for him. So it's all the cash. And even if Alvarez wins, which I don't know. I think it's a call 'em. I think it's a pick 'em one. But if he wins, there's nothing left for him. Really, there's always nothing left for him. So and never mind tainted meat. He's tainted meat now, as far as the boxing of boxing goes. So it's all for Crawford, whatever happens.
I would love, if I'm just playing fantasy matchmaker, like I do sometimes, that it's always a lot of fun. If I'm seeing Terence Crawford, and this is for my own guilty pleasures, if I'm seeing Terence Crawford hang out in that weight division after his fight with Canelo Alvarez, I want to see Terence Crawford, Caleb Plant inside of that ring, because I love me some Caleb Plant lead up to a fight just as much, if not more, than anybody. You watch Caleb Plant walk into somebody else's gym and just tear a strip out of him, it'll make you a huge fan too. And I also think that Caleb Plant had one of the best outings in recent time against Canelo Alvarez, where Canelo Alvarez wasn't trying to go up in weight. Caleb Plant is a lot better than people think he really is. One of my favorite fighters of all time. And if you can give me a Terrence Crawford versus a Caleb Plant, I'm here for it all day long, right?
That's fantastic because Terence Crawford's got good out of the ring game as well.
Yeah.
So, he's got that kind of laid back, Caleb Plant will come at you. Caleb Plant, he'll come at you. Crawford will soak that up and give you something witty back all day. And actually, their styles might mesh in the ring as well. I think that would really work. My view is that I want Shannon Briggs to come massively down in weight and fight Bud Crawford because that outside of the ring would be super.
Well, he was there on Friday as well. You can see him stand. You can see him standing in the background like a friggin' statue. Unbelievable, So yeah, listen, Shannon Briggs is also hilarious.
He is. Basically, he'll fight anybody. He'll fight you. He'll fight your granddad. He'll fight anybody. All of you. I'll fight you all at once. All 20 of you. All of you right now.
So the question is, what do you do with William Skull after this? Where does he go after this? I don't think he goes anywhere.
No, you had your shot. Yeah, you had your shot. I mean, even on commentary, they were saying, Sergio Mora was saying, this is your shot. This is your shot. Why aren't you throwing? This is your shot. You won't get another one. They were, for them to be saying that on commentary, that's it. So shuffle back into the pack, picks up some paydays, nothing much. He's the testing ground for some up and coming fighters. That's all he's got. It's a Buster Douglas situation.
I think you could maybe give him one more. Maybe give him Bruno Suarez. Maybe give him something like that coming off of this. They both lost. If you want to keep them in that mix, you know what I mean? But even after that, I don't think there's any meat there.
No, I think if I was his manager or promoter, I'd be booking dance-a-thons for him. 24-hour dance-a-thons at some local disco because he's bound to win all of those. Pete, don't fail me now.
Listen, we have one more day to go here, Steve. We have a set of fights tonight being headlined by, probably one of the pound for pound. And I say that pound for pound because he doesn't weigh much more than those 2 pounds. In a way is fighting again, but he's fighting in North America this time and he's fighting in Las Vegas. This whole weekend, including this, is nothing more than promo stuff. Inoue needs to get into North America. This is the perfect spot for him to do that, right? In Las Vegas, main eventing at the arena. I think it's at T-Mobile, if I'm not mistaken, where they are, right? That's a big fight. There's no heavyweights on this card for tonight either, if I'm not mistaken. It's all like middleweight and below, right? So it's a big outing for him. And this is going to be a non-starter, a nothing burger. Here's why I say this. I love me watching some Inoue fights. Fantastic. Even some of these guys on the undercard. Fantastic. But the shot has been shot. Last night was Canelo. The night before that was in the middle of Times Square in New York. Like we're talking extravaganzas that they've had their shot at now. That's done. Now this is the 3-day music convention where you had Wu-Tang, on night 1, Rage Against the Machine on night 2, and we end up with fucking, I don't know, Bare Naked Ladies on night fucking 3. Right? Like it doesn't matter. We just needed somebody there to play some music while the campers are camping up and making sure that they got their shit before they get out of here. That's what this feels like to me with this fight tonight.
naked ladies. I saw you thinking of what it would be, and I thought, I wonder what he's gonna. That was great, worth waiting for, Timster. That.
Well,
Yeah. While they're all cleaning up their primer stoves and, as you say, putting their tents away. Yes, this is it. And this has all the hallmarks of, we just got to get this done, ladies and gentlemen. You know, really what they should be saying is, okay, everybody gets $5 for watching this. Anybody who watches it gets $5 because you're supporting it's the Inner Way Celebration Tour, and you're supporting his next move. Yeah, it's just, I'll watch it because I love watching him fight.
sure.
But what's the point?
Well, and that's just it. What is the point? Because he has no interest in moving up in class, right? This is it's for the unified belts. Cool. They're all for the unified belts at this point because he's not going anywhere. So, I mean, the only thing that you're going to really have is if you have Junto Nakatami come up in weight class to meet him, right? Here's the thing that you got to ask yourself, and there's similarities here, right? When you get to the top of what you think is the top, Canelo Alvarez has had it happen. Naoya Inoue is doing it right now. I'm not going to continue my successful drive to go outside of my realm like I did to get me here. You got to come up and see me. This is Rocky all over. Not the first one, not the second one, not the third one. This is Rocky 4 all over. Sorry, bro.
I must end you.
But that's what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that it becomes really, there's no excitement because you can see the moves, and you can see them coming a mile off, and we've seen them all weekend this weekend. And so it's not exciting unless those fighters get up for that.
Yeah.
And none of them are up for it. And one of the reasons might be because they can see it coming a mile off. And it's just something I have to get through. And as you say, that didn't happen to 3 of those fighters. Let's see what happens with Inoue today.
Yeah. So don't come at me and say you're the toughest man on the planet. You're this, that, and the other thing. Unless you are, the biggest heavyweight out there and you've beat the shit out of everybody. Don't come at me and say that you are the best of the best if you're not willing to fight somebody who's bigger than you when you expect others smaller than you to fight you. Plain and simple.
Yeah. And the business of boxing affects the boxing of boxing once again.
Right? Unbelievable stuff. But we're going to fucking watch it. We're going to watch every goddamn bit of it, Steve. Listen, all in all, I think B said it best. The entire weekend so far, it's a huge flop. Huge flop. And, hopefully they can get better. We've got some fights coming up. There's going to be some, have to be some healing process, I think. But it's going to give us a little bit more time to talk about the in-depth stuff, the business end of stuff going forward. Right? Steve, always a pleasure. Holy shit, we even went longer than usual on this one, but there was a lot to cover. There was a hell of a lot to cover off of this one. And I mean, we missed last week, so let's not do that again anytime soon. All right.
Love it.
Everybody, if you haven't yet, please go check out Steve, World Weary Guy 1, for all of his stuff there as well. Just look up Steve Swift. There's only one. There's only one great one anyways. And once you see that face, you're going to know exactly where you can go. Not a clinic. Anyways, always a pleasure, Steve. If you haven't yet, please, everybody, like, subscribe, share, do all of those things. Let's keep this ball rolling. We're going to try not to miss any weeks in a row. If you haven't yet, also on here, check out Steve's NXT reviews that he does, the weekly reviews of NXT, and all of his other wrestling stuff. It's not just boxing. This guy talks wrestling stuff. He talks music. He does it all. I mean, I don't know when he finds the time to look so good and do all of this work. Steve, it's always a pleasure, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Until then, remember, underneath that beautiful beard is a chin. Keep it tucked.